On today's episode of Locked On Wild, the Minnesota Wild are in action tonight against the Dallas Stars. Let's just take a quick peek at the injury report. Wait, Kirill is out?
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we are your team each and every day. And we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we'll take a look at the injury report. Kirill Kaprizov not making the trip to Dallas to take on the Stars tonight. What is going on with Kaprizov? We'll also talk about updates for Joel Eriksson and Jake Middleton, and we'll look at the Dallas Stars heading into tonight's matchup. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, and it never ends. It never ends for the Minnesota Wild, as it was announced today that Kirill Kaprizov did not make the trip to Dallas with the Minnesota Wild and is officially day-to-day with a lower body injury. So just the one blow that you really can't afford to have happen, and it just so happens to coincide against another critical Central Division opponent that now you've got your best offensive playmaker, the focal point of the offense, out of the lineup here tonight. And to quote Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber, we got no food, we got no jobs, our pets' heads are falling off. I don't think we need to look too far into this. Joe Smith today. John Hines said Kaprizov was a little banged up before the break, talked with doctors yesterday, and felt it was right to be out today. Not concerned it would be much longer beyond today, but the Wild will see how he feels tomorrow. And this is just, I don't know where this came from. And just to follow up, Joe Smith says on X, Hines said this was something new when asked if it was related to his last injury. He hasn't been playing through this for a long time either. So I don't know what it is. And I guess we will just have to wait and see. Now, for Kaprizov, in the month of December, he's got 8 goals in 11 games and 4 assists for 12 total points. So as far as production goes, hasn't been anything that has really slowed him down tremendously, but he is able to make things look pretty easy when he's out there on the ice. So the hope has got to be that this is a one game and he'll be ready to go Sunday against the Ottawa Senators, and we'll be able to get back to it after that, because it just so happens that, especially over the last, say, 5 games, if your name's not Kirill Kaprizov, it's been a little hard to come by in the goals department. The Wild have scored 5 total non-Kirill Kaprizov goals in the most recent 5-game stretch. And Kirill has 3 goals in that span. This has been something we've talked about pretty much all season. Rossi, Mats Zuccarello, Matt Boldy, the secondary scoring. Those are really the only consistent options. And Matt Boldy, over the last 5 games, he's got 1 point. He's a -5. In the entire month of December, he is a -6 in 11 games. He's got 2 goals and 6 points in 11 games. This has lost the Wild games over this most recent skid, is because they're not scoring when Kirill Kaprizov is not out there. So plain and simple, point blank tonight, is the Wild are going to need to get some other pieces to step up and to be able to offer something offensively going up against a Dallas team that is fourth in the division, but now is suddenly just 6 points back of the Minnesota Wild. This is a game you would absolutely love to have, not only for the points, not only for the Central Division standings, but also just in the psyche department. It's been a hot minute since the Minnesota Wild have beaten the Dallas Stars. They did not last year. I don't believe they did the year before. So maybe 2021, 2022 is the last time that the Wild have beaten the Dallas Stars. It seems like they just have their number. And the games have, with the exception of the early matchup this year, the games have not been close. The games in the series have been more and more lopsided as we go. Last year featured one of those just disastrous special teams debacles, and then a 7-0 shutout loss. So you're moving in things are hopefully trending towards finally winning a game against the Stars by having lost to them just narrowly 2-1 earlier this year. But the reason that the Wild have struggled as much as they have against teams like Dallas is the lineup depth. And the Wild are struggling to put two scoring lines together. Dallas can hit you with 4. 3 for sure, 3+. But they can hit you with 3+, and they can consistently play those lines. And it's just something that the Wild have a hard time being able to match up against, because inevitably you are going to get stuck out there with their top line against your fourth line or third line. And if you can't win those types of battles, it gets dicey. Now, the lineup here tonight will be an interesting one because it'll be Matt Boldy, Marco Rossi, and Mats Zuccarello on the top line. So again, we're going top heavy to just try to get something rolling, and maybe this will be something that gets Matt Boldy going on a little bit of a good spell, because I know he's started to kind of cut the penalties down, but Boldy's on a run here that is not the kind that you want to have. So hopefully this will allow, by playing with Rossi and with Zuccarello, hopefully this will allow him to kind of get going. They're going to need that line to score multiple goals tonight in order to win. That's just as simple as it is. And as far as the special teams go, power play number 1, Boldy, Rossi, Zuccarello, Foligno, and Spurgeon. Power play 2 is Hartman, Johansson, Gaudreau, Faber, and Chisholm. So you're going to need 5-on-5 scoring tonight. You're going to need 5-on-5 scoring. Hopefully you get somebody that just gets you a couple of goals. I think that's the other part of this, is somebody just step up and kind of take charge offensively. If Boldy does it tonight, that's great. If Zuccarello does it tonight, that'd be just fine as well, just as long as somebody kind of steps up and takes the lead and provides a consistent approach. But as we've talked about in previous episodes, the everydayers will have this pretty much tattooed on their forearms by now. Shot depth is going to really help. It doesn't matter who you have in the game. If you're shooting from the perimeter, your chances of scoring are very low. Very low. So if the Wilds can get back to pushing towards the net on Jake Ottinger, they'll have a much better chance of scoring in this one tonight. But make no mistake, it's daunting. It is a daunting task for the Minnesota Wild tonight, going up against the Dallas Stars without your top offensive player, and one of the few that really can dynamically impact the game. You're going to have to really fight and claw for offensive opportunities against the Stars here tonight. Now, thankfully, there was some good news on the injury front today, particularly regarding Joel Eriksson and Jake Middleton. So we will take a look at the latest on 2 key pieces for this Minnesota Wild team as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better. Game Time is offering a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The Minnesota Vikings, with one final home game coming up this weekend against the Green Bay Packers. Perfect time to go hit up US Bank Stadium, and Game Time can help you do it. The Minnesota Wild, the Minnesota Timberwolves, all still have a good majority of their schedule left, so you've got great opportunities all winter long to see them in action in your favorite venues. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Continuing today's episode of Locked On Wild, once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Reminder, yes, we do have a postcast coming up for you, but it'll probably be a little later than we typically go. So just keep an eye out, and once my tournament is done tonight, I'll get that fired up, and we'll chat about whatever happens in tonight's matchup against the Dallas Stars. Hoping to be on the right side of a Philip Gustavsson stand on your head and win a game. That would certainly go a long way for the Minnesota Wild here this evening. Hoping to be on the right side of one of those types of games, but I'm not going to lie, it's a tall mountain for the Wilds to climb here tonight. Now, some news from earlier today. Jesse Pierce, our friend from Bar Down Beauties, trying to offer a little good news after all the Kirill not making the trip to Dallas news. Jesse saying on X, but if you want some good news, I heard Joel Eriksson X skated hard this morning in St. Paul, and Middleton was also worked out. So there's that. Anyway, it's interesting because we got the report that Jonas Brodin was first skating. And took that as like, okay, he's starting to ramp up activity to get to the spot of being able to, ramp up enough to be put in the lineup. And then he was in the lineup like 2 days later. So I would take this as a sign that they're obviously not going to play tonight, maybe not going to play on Sunday, but I would say at least on the Eriksson Ek front, looking like he's trending towards getting close, and the Wild could sure use him. The lineups for tonight, we talked about the top line. The lineup tonight, courtesy of the Daily Faceoff, your second line, Marcus Johansson, Freddie Gaudreau, Marcus Foligno, Brendan Gaunce, Marat Huzdinov, and Ryan Hartman as your third line. Yakov Trenin, Ben Jones, and Devin Shore as your fourth line. You might need 2 goals apiece from Boldy, Rossi, and Zuccarello tonight to pull this one off. It is a lineup that is missing key pieces up and down the lineup. But I guess in a roundabout way, Marat Huzdinov getting elevated to the third line. Don't hate that at all. It's going to either require the Wild to really limit opportunities defensively and really try to win this 1-0 or 2-1, or they're really going to be stacking a ton of pressure on the Boldy, Rossi, Zuccarello combination, playing for the first time as a trio tonight. That's a tall order to ask for those types of players to just have to foot the entire bill going up against this Dallas team. I guess as far as combinations go, it's so funny too. Like if you try to do like a what do you think of the line combinations? I mean, you have four guys. You get three guys in the lineup that are better suited in the AHL. You have three guys that are bottom six players playing top six roles. So but at the same time, I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do to try to make this better, short of the things that have been shouted from the mountaintop all season. Liam Ogren. If the Minnesota Wild thought Liam Ogren was ready to help, he'd be here. All the things that have been discussed. This is, at present, this is the best lineup that you can throw out there against Dallas tonight, considering who is out of the lineup and the spots at which there are key pieces that are not able to, that you're not able to just fill with one person. You're not able to just throw a center in to take over all the things that Joel Eriksson does or that Jake Middleton did. It's just, it's tricky. Fortunately, Philip Gustavsson in net. So if he can hold the Dallas Stars off the board, maybe you run the chance of being able to sneak a greasy one past Jake Ottinger. But I would not expect this one to look pretty by any stretch of the imagination tonight. Dallas is going to have a sizable advantage in the puck, in the zone time battle. Probably a lot more chances, just because you've got one line that can really sustain. Now, maybe by having Foligno up on the second line with Gaudreau and Johansson, maybe you can get a little puck possession generated with that trio, but it's going to be a tall order for the Minnesota Wild against this Dallas team here tonight. So I guess all we can really do is hope for some good news tomorrow and beyond for Joel Eriksson, for Kirill Kaprizov, and an update, I guess, on where Jake Middleton is at in his process. And once the Wild get these key pieces back, then the hope is that some of the areas that have been leaky will be shored up. But that's not even a guarantee. The penalty kill has been bad for 2+ seasons. And it's not bad now just because Jake Middleton came out of the lineup. So it's going to be a dicey one here this evening, but teams have been in far worse spots and have found ways to win games. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they maybe find a way to catch a Dallas team napping in this game tonight. It's not like the Stars have been lighting it up here recently. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. Granted, the Minnesota Wild are 4-6. We'll see what happens tonight, but the Dallas Stars coming in, some interesting things going on with the Stars here, especially over the course of the last month. We'll take a look at how the Stars have fared over their last several games as we gear you up for tonight's matchup between the Wild and the Stars. That's coming up on today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are just about here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. Not only can you bet on particular players, but you can score points on guessing which team is going to score a touchdown and how many points both teams will score in a game. The Minnesota Vikings are taking on the Green Bay Packers this weekend. Maybe you feel as though the Vikings will cover. Maybe you just feel like there are going to be 1 billion points scored by both teams. You got both options on the table, courtesy of FanDuel. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. And a reminder, we will have a postcast coming up for you tonight. A little later than we typically go, but we'll hang out. We'll break down the game, and we'll see whatever happens tonight against the Dallas Stars. Now, Dallas, coming into this matchup, they are just 6 points behind the Minnesota Wild. They find themselves in fourth place in the Central Division. And actually, if the season started today, the Dallas Stars, they did finally claw their way back in to a postseason spot. They are the second wild card right now. And I will say this too. The Dallas Stars have 2 games in hand on the Minnesota Wild. So let's say they win both games. Well, all of a sudden now you're 2 points back of the Minnesota Wild. And the Stars have not gone to overtime yet this year. Actually, they've gone to 2 overtime games, including a shootout. But they have not had a ton of games that have gone the extra session, which is interesting. One of the stingiest teams in the entire West at giving up goals. In fact, they are the absolute stingiest. Just 85 goals allowed for the Dallas Stars. That is 11 goals better than the Minnesota Wild in 2 fewer games. So the Stars have a neat and tidy little plus 20 in the goal differential. If you look at how they have done over the month of December, the Stars have not been doing too bad. They started to kind of take on some water, and they're starting to pull back out of it. They're 6-5 in 11 December games, scoring 2.55 goals against per game, and giving up just 2.36 goals allowed per game. So the 2.55 goals per game is not great, but when you're giving up 2.36, you'll take that. Power play numbers for the Dallas Stars. In the month of December, they have somehow a power play that is worse than the Minnesota Wild's has been. Dallas is 10.8% on the power play in the month of December. There are only 4 teams that are worse. Detroit, both New York teams, and the Nashville Predators. Now on the penalty kill, they're at 92.9% over the month of December. Minnesota Wild are at 60.7%. And it seems more automatic than that over the last several weeks. So it's the same story. Like, I may as well just get a sign that I tap, maybe put it here, somewhere in here, that just says, keep the game 5-on-5. If you keep the game 5-on-5, you stand a good chance to win. If you don't, well, then we know what happens, because it's happened almost it's happened almost automatically this season. Seems like every game there's a power play goal allowed, or a couple of power play goals allowed, and it's something that you just eventually you're just going to run into some problems. If you look at the Minnesota Wild have allowed 94 total goals on the season. They did have a shootout loss in which they gave up another goal, which is why ESPN has them having given up 96. But if you take away the 26 goals on the power play, the Wild would be allowing the fewest goals in the league. Still one of the best teams in terms of 5-on-5 goals against defensively. They just can't play that style enough. Statistically, for the Dallas Stars in the month of December, not a ton of notable performances for the Stars. They're kind of getting what they need, and that's about it. With the exception of Rupe Hintz, who has 6 goals in the month of December. So he's really started to pick up the scoring. Jason Robertson has 10 points in the last 11 games, so he's starting to pick it up as well, but just 2 goals. And then you look at players like Wyatt Johnston. He's got 3 goals in 11 games. Mason Marchment, 3 goals in 11 games. Jamie Benn's got 2 goals, 8 points in the last 11 games. So very even scoring. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different players. 9 different players with multiple goals. 10 different players with multiple goals in the month of December, and just 3 players on the roster have not recorded points so far here in the month of December. So it's a Dallas team that can beat you in multiple ways. They've got multiple lines that can attack and multiple lines that can get you, but you got 3 players in double figures in goals. Rupe Hintz, Mason Marchment, and Matt Duchene. So it's a team that it feels like should be doing more scoring. You look at some of the key players from last year. Jason Robertson's got 7 goals in the first 33 games. Wyatt Johnston's got 6 in the first 33 games. Logan Stankoven has 4 goals. Some of these guys that had solid production last year just have not quite got it going so far this year. But when you are a team that has had no trouble preventing goals from being scored, you can afford that. Because guess what? The numbers for Jake Ottinger, even though the wins have not, he's 4-5, but a 2.33 goals against and a 90.5 save percentage in the month of December. And if you look at his numbers overall on the season, Ottinger is currently 3rd in the league with wins with 16 and a 2.42 goals against average and a 9.10 save percentage. He's been playing great hockey like he always does. So any way that you slice this here tonight, it's a tough matchup for the Minnesota Wild. They are missing their key offensive superstar. They are missing a couple of other key pieces. And it's a group of secondary scorers that has had a rough go here over the last 3 weeks. And if it's a loss, it's just another game that's going to go in the column of loss against a team that you are hoping to be above in the standings. So let's buck that trend at some point. At some point, it's got to change. At some point, something's got to give. A win's got to go in that win column. Thankfully for the Wild, Philip Gustavsson will be on the hill in the net for the Wild here. And since Gustavsson returned in the month of December, Gus is 4-1. Now, his overall numbers still kind of buoyed by that Edmonton game. He's got a 3.12 goals against average and an 8.94 save percentage. Gave up the late extra attacker goal against Chicago to make it 4-3. Otherwise, that's a solid start for him. He's going to be peppered in this one. He's going to face a lot of shots in this game. So he's going to need to be on his guard from puck drop. And the Wild just have to fight as hard as they can and battle as hard as they can and hope that is enough to come away with a win here tonight. But that will do it for today's episode of Locked On Wild. Again, doesn't sound like the team is concerned at all about Kirill Kaprizov's new injury and are holding him out more for precautionary measures. We'll find out more, and we'll get you an update on his status before Sunday's game against the Ottawa Senators. Make sure to join us after the game tonight for a Locked On Wild postcast. We'll break down the action, and we will see exactly what happened and why as we chat with you after the game. But make sure to hit the subscribe button if you have not already. so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Locked On Wild has you covered with new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.